Men think they understand why women leave until it happens to them. He did everything right. Paid the bills, stayed faithful, never raised his voice, fixed the Wi-Fi. Then one ordinary Tuesday, she looked across the table, exhaled, and said she couldn't do it anymore. No scandal, no affair, just a calm exit that made no sense to a man who equated low drama with high love. Here's the taboo truth. Women rarely leave good men because of chaos. They leave because the calm went stale. The relationship became safe the way a padded room is safe. No sharp edges, no oxygen. He mistook the absence of fights for the presence of intimacy. She mistook gratitude for love. Routine turned into rigor mortis, while both of them congratulated themselves for being stable. Nobody warns men about emotional malnutrition. They're told, don't be toxic, but not be alive. So he followed the rulebook, provide, protect, behave, and slowly disappeared from his own marriage. He became dependable the way a wall is dependable, always there, rarely felt. She kept asking for depth. He kept offering logistics. You can't hug reliability, and you can't kiss a calendar invite. The heartbreak is that she probably still loves him. But love that stops evolving turns into numbness. And numbness is a slow kind of death. She doesn't leave to chase chaos. She leaves to feel a pulse. To hear laughter that isn't polite. To be met, not managed. Men call it leaving a good guy. Women call it leaving a life that forgot how to be awake. The tragedy is fixable. If he learns that intimacy isn't the absence of conflict, it's the presence of courage. There's a quiet psychological mechanism behind why women leave good men, and it's not mystery or madness, it's starvation. The brain doesn't only crave safety, it also craves stimulation, curiosity, novelty. When predictability hardens into routine, it starves the emotional system. What once felt stable begins to feel sterile. The same gestures that once communicated love start to feel like maintenance. It's called emotional flatlining, a state where the relationship still functions but no longer vibrates. He still mows the lawn, she still makes dinner, and they still post smiling photos from holidays they barely remember. It looks fine from the outside. That's what makes it so dangerous. There are no arguments to diagnose, no villains to blame. Just two people slowly orbiting different emotional planets while pretending gravity still connects them. Men are rarely taught emotional literacy, so they mistake consistency for intimacy. They think showing up is enough, but love isn't attendance, it's engagement. When she says, "I don't feel connected," he hears, "I'm not grateful." So he doubles down on chores instead of curiosity, logic instead of presence. She doesn't want him to fix the sink. She wants him to see her, to ask how she's doing and mean it. Over time, the absence of emotional charge becomes unbearable. She starts to feel like a ghost in her own house. He feels blindsided when she finally leaves, not realizing he's been losing her molecule by molecule for years. The mechanism is invisible because it's quiet, not explosive, but erosive. You don't notice it breaking until it's already dust. Picture this. She's sitting beside him on the couch, watching another show they don't really like. He scrolls through his phone, laughing softly at something online. She glances at him, the light from the screen washing his face pale, and feels an ache she can't name. They're together, but not with each other. The silence isn't peaceful anymore. It's hollow. That's when she realizes she's lonelier in his presence than she ever was in solitude. Another night, she tries again. She tells him she misses them, that she wants to feel close. He nods, says he understands, and then checks the time. "Tomorrow's early," he says. "They'll talk later." They never do. The moment evaporates like steam from a coffee cup left untouched. He thinks he's avoiding conflict. She feels invisible. At dinner with friends, she laughs too loudly at someone else's joke. It's not flirtation. It's resurrection. For a brief second, she remembers what it feels like to be animated, to be seen. That jolt of recognition becomes addictive. She doesn't want another man. She wants another version of herself, the one that still feels alive in her own skin. He notices something's changed. She's quieter now, distracted. He asks if she's okay, and she smiles, that diplomatic smile women learn when honesty would only start another loop of misunderstanding. Inside, she's already packing boxes he can't see. This is how it happens. Not with slammed doors or betrayal, but with a slow emotional erosion so subtle that by the time the relationship collapses, it looks perfectly intact from the outside. He'll tell his friends, "I don't know what happened," and he'll mean it. The tragedy is that it didn't happen, it drifted, and no one taught him to feel the current until it was gone. From a psychological point of view, the unraveling isn't random. It's biology meeting unmet emotion. In the beginning, relationships thrive on novelty. Dopamine spikes, reward circuits fire, and every glance feels electric. But as comfort deepens, the brain shifts from craving excitement to seeking stability. For most men, that's a relief. For many women, it's dissonance. The system that once hummed with anticipation now hums with repetition. The chemistry doesn't vanish, it calcifies. Humans adapt fast. What was once thrilling becomes background noise. The brain normalizes kindness, familiarity, even affection. She stops getting the small hormonal bursts that once made her feel alive, and without emotional renewal, her system interprets comfort as stagnation. That's not shallowness, it's wiring. The psyche feeds on meaning as much as safety. Without both, connection decays. Add to that social conditioning. Women are raised to track emotional weather, to anticipate needs, mediate tension, and hold the fabric together. Over time, this hyper-attunement becomes exhaustion. She begins to sense micro-withdrawals long before he notices anything's wrong. By the time he asks, "Are you okay?" she's already miles away emotionally, translating a language he never learned to speak. For men, the reward center reacts differently. Predictability feels safe, a sign of competence. For women, predictability without intimacy feels like emotional starvation. It's not that she wants chaos, it's that she wants aliveness. The biological tension between stability and novelty isn't a flaw, it's a paradox built into love itself. Relationships only survive it through conscious effort, reintroducing curiosity, play, and genuine vulnerability. Not flowers or grand gestures, but the kind of presence that disrupts autopilot. The body reads attention as attraction, and attention is what keeps love breathing. Without it, safety becomes sedation, and sedation slowly kills connection. The warning signs that a woman is preparing to leave a good man are rarely loud. They're quiet, civilized, almost polite. They sound like, "I'm just tired," or "We're fine," but they're not fine. They're finished. Below are the signs men miss until they're reading them in hindsight. 1. She stops arguing. Conflict means there's still energy to fix something. Silence means she's emotionally checked out. When she stops fighting, she's rehearsing her exit. 2. She becomes efficient. Conversations become bullet points. Affection turns into logistics. She still remembers birthdays but forgets warmth. It's not cruelty, it's detachment disguised as responsibility. 3. She invests in external validation. More time with friends, a new hobby, maybe therapy. She's searching for reflection, not rebellion. She needs to see herself somewhere again because she can't find that mirror at home. 4. She downplays the good parts. When asked about the relationship, she calls it comfortable. That word used to mean stability. Now it means resignation. 5. She fantasizes about solitude, not infidelity. She dreams of having her own space, her own weekend, her own silence. It's not about leaving him. It's about returning to herself. 6. She starts narrating her life in the past tense. "We used to" slips out more often. That's nostalgia, not memory. It means she's already begun emotional time travel. 7. She stops seeking reassurance. She no longer asks if he loves her, not because she's secure, but because she's stopped expecting an answer that changes anything. By the time these signs appear, it's not a countdown, it's a conclusion. What men mistake for sudden departures are slow goodbyes written in plain sight. The tragedy is that she didn't stop loving him. She stopped recognizing herself in the version of love they built together. Not every woman leaves. Some recognize the drift early enough to swim back toward connection instead of drifting into silence. The counter signals of resilience are quiet, deliberate acts, small corrections made before the distance becomes permanent. They're not grand gestures or desperate reconciliations. They're moments of truth, spoken before the silence hardens. It starts with honesty. She tells him she feels unseen, not to wound him, but to wake him. If he listens, really listens, Something shifts. He doesn't argue, doesn't defend his resume of good deeds. He asks questions instead of offering solutions. He learns that curiosity is intimacy. When he stops trying to fix her and starts trying to understand her, the air changes. The next step is presence. Not just being home, but being there. Phones down. Eyes up. He learns to speak in attention, not advice. She, in turn, begins to soften. The armor she built from disappointment starts to crack, and through it, the old laughter escapes. Connection doesn't return in fireworks. It returns in eye contact that lasts half a second longer than it used to. Resilience also means redefining masculinity. The strongest men aren't the ones who never falter. They're the ones who stay emotionally available even when uncomfortable. Vulnerability isn't weakness, it's signal. When he admits, "I don't know how to fix this, but I want to," she exhales for the first time in years. And she has her own work too. To stop testing love by absence. To express needs instead of expecting mind reading. To allow repair instead of proving her point. When both decide that maintenance isn't the goal, growth is, they start to evolve together again. It's not a perfect recovery, but it's real. Because resilience in love isn't staying. It's choosing to stay awake every day. Every love story has hidden villains, and most of them live quietly in plain sight. For modern couples, the antagonists are subtle. Screens, algorithms, exhaustion, and unspoken resentment disguised as routine. They don't storm the relationship, they drain it, drop by drop. Every love story has hidden villains, and most of them live quietly in plain sight. For modern couples, the antagonists are subtle. Screens, algorithms, exhaustion, and unspoken resentment disguised as routine. They don't storm the relationship, they drain it, drop by drop. The danger isn't betrayal, it's distraction. Social media is the loudest amplifier. It turns comparison into a daily reflex. She scrolls through curated affection, anniversary posts, beach selfies, grateful for my man captions, and feels the absence of spark like an open wound. He scrolls too, but differently. He numbs out with humor, news, or endless reels, not noticing that each scroll steals a fraction of attention he should have spent on her. Together, they become strangers sharing Wi-Fi. Work is another amplifier. For men, professional validation often replaces emotional connection. He feels productive, so he assumes he's providing, but a paycheck can't replace presence. For women, the same career drive that once symbolized independence now competes with emotional depletion. She's tired of being strong at work and invisible at home. Then there's cultural noise, the endless messaging that love should be effortless. That idea poisons endurance. It tells people that if connection feels like work, it must be wrong. The truth is the opposite. Love that lasts because it's maintained is more romantic than love that lasts by accident. The final amplifier is time itself. The years speed up, and the space for deliberate connection shrinks. The antidote isn't grand vacations or gifts, it's micro-presence. The 5-minute check-ins, the hand on her shoulder while making coffee, the moment of undistracted laughter. Those are the quiet rebellions that defy erosion. The antagonists never disappear. They just lose power when you stop pretending you're immune to them. Awareness is the weapon. Attention is the cure. When a woman finally leaves a good man, the fallout doesn't explode. It unfolds. The breakup is calm, almost polite, but the silence afterward is deafening. He walks through the house like it's a museum of still life. Her mug on the counter, her shampoo in the shower, her presence still everywhere except where it matters. He tells himself she'll come back when she cools off, but this isn't heat, it's absence. You can't wait out emptiness. The emotional consequence for her is complex. She feels both relief and grief. She didn't want to hurt him. She just couldn't keep erasing herself to stay. There's guilt in leaving someone decent. Society doesn't understand it. People ask, but he was such a good man. She nods, because he was. That's what makes it tragic. She didn't leave a villain. She left a life that became too quiet to hear her own thoughts. For him, the consequence is slower. He spends months trying to make sense of it, analyzing details, replaying conversations, looking for the moment it broke. What he's really doing is mourning a version of himself, the man who believed doing everything right would protect him from loss. The realization cuts deep. Being good isn't the same as being known. Friends tell him to move on, to to find someone new. But the truth is, he doesn't need new. He needs awake. If he uses the grief properly, it becomes a mirror, forcing him to confront everything he never learned about emotional presence. There are no real winners in this story, only lessons. Love doesn't die in a fight. It dies in neglect that smiles politely. The aftermath isn't about who left who. It's about whether either learned to stay present before the silence arrived. Agency begins when both realize that leaving isn't the only way to start over. The power to rebuild love comes from the same place it fell apart, the daily moments no one notices. It's not about apologies or promises. It's about participation. The relationship dies when people stop showing up. It lives again when they return with awareness instead of entitlement. For him, agency starts with learning a new language, not of logic, but of emotion. He begins asking questions that don't have efficient answers. "What do you need?" replaces "What's wrong?" He learns to sit in discomfort without sprinting toward a solution. The moment he understands that attention is intimacy, something rewires in him. He becomes visible again, not as a provider, but as a partner. For her, agency is softer, but no less demanding. It means recognizing when independence becomes isolation, when strength becomes armor. It's about saying, "I still need connection," without shame. She learns that vulnerability isn't a return to weakness, it's a return to truth. When she opens that door, she gives the relationship something stronger than attraction. She gives it honesty. Together, agency means choice. They can end or they can evolve. They can mourn what's gone or build something new with the fragments that remain. What matters isn't perfection, it's engagement. Love only grows when both are willing to stay conscious inside it. In the end, agency isn't dramatic. It's the quiet decision to be awake in your own life. To stop waiting for your partner to change and start becoming the version of yourself that invites connection. The kind of man who listens. The kind of woman who trusts. Two people who understand that love doesn't survive by accident. It survives by choice, renewed every day. In the end, why women leave good men isn't really about women leaving at all. It's about what happens when love becomes maintenance instead of movement. It's the slow forgetting that intimacy needs mystery, attention, and risk just as much as loyalty and care. Stability without depth turns love into a well-lit waiting room, comfortable but empty. The truth is, most women don't want to leave. They wait, they hint, they hope. But eventually, the quiet becomes louder than the words that never come. She doesn't leave because she stopped loving him. She leaves because she stopped recognizing herself in the reflection of his stillness. And he isn't heartless, just untrained in the art of emotional presence. No one taught him that safety can feel like suffocation when it replaces connection. The good news, the hope, is that it's reversible. Love can be reawakened the same way it was born, through curiosity, laughter, and attention. Through the courage to ask, "Do you still feel alive here?" and to listen when the answer trembles. Relationships don't die of boredom. They die of silence. And silence can be broken. So maybe the real question isn't why she left, but when either of them stopped showing up. Because the quiet truth is this: good men don't lose good women. They lose the conversation that could have saved them both. And that's the haunting lesson beneath it all. Love doesn't end with a bang. It fades with a whisper you ignored for too long. Don't wait for the silence to speak for you. Speak now, before the quiet does.